Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the KSL.com Game Center podcast. It's Caleb Turner here, joined by Andrew Hyde, the KSL.com Aggies beat writer up at Utah State. How you doing today, Andrew?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Caleb.
Yeah, for sure. On this podcast, we kind of go around and talk with the different beat writers, talk about what's going on with the latest in all the sports around the state of Utah. And we haven't had the chance to talk about the Aggies yet this year. Obviously, the season hasn't gotten off to the exact start that I'm sure the team and fans would have liked. But certainly a matchup tomorrow against UConn that is very winnable and can get the Aggies their second win of the season. How are the vibes? What's the feeling there heading into tomorrow's game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Aggies definitely 1-3 again, just like last season. Not a great start to this season. But I think the difference is you look at the losses this season, and they're all against pretty respectable opponents: Iowa, Air Force, James Madison. Definitely three opponents. Not that definitely they're high quality opponents. And then that's going to be the big difference, I think, against UConn this week. Is it's going to be another one of those opponents. It's more like Idaho State. Certainly a winnable game. But yeah, I think this game could be a really important win, and if they do lose that, that's where I think that Aggie fans and the team should really start to worry. But this one I think is going to tell a lot about how Utah State will match up against some of the other Mountain West opponents, especially.
Yeah, and this is a Utah State program that has gone through its fair share of changes, not only over the last year or so, but even just within this season, changing starting quarterbacks from Cooper Legat to McKay Halstead. And then not to mention all the other new athletic director and everything that's kind of going on up there in Logan. Does it kind of feel like the program is finding a little bit of solid footing after kind of an uncertain last year or two?
I mean, I feel like that's their goal, right? They're certainly trying. It was interesting to talk to the coaches and players before the season started, and ask them about what they expected going into the season, and they all said we have no idea what to expect. We don't know. Just because I think there were 60 something newcomers to the team this year. The team has, I think, a little under 40 freshmen. So tons and tons of new faces on the team. Um, and so I think they're really just trying to find their identity. And that's one reason that I think that 1-3 start could have really been expected against some high quality opponents. Um, but I think what we saw last week was really interesting. I think the Aggies, for the first time, started to find some footing against James Madison. The other games that they lost against Iowa and Air Force, they started to come back a little bit, but they never really got mounted a really nice comeback against James Madison. We saw a completely different team, a lot of talent, a lot of confidence, and so I think that that'll really be the thing to look for going forward, going into UConn, going into the rest of that season. Are they able to maintain that identity? Are they able to keep that confidence? Because if they do, I think they have a great chance to do something pretty special this year. But it's all going to come down to if they're able to find out that identity. That's really what they've been working on, and that's what they'll continue to work on is finding out who they really are.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned the newcomers, quite a few freshmen, and one of those freshmen is a starting quarterback now, true freshman McKay Halstead, Utah native. What have you seen from McKay in these first few starts that have kind of signaled to you, okay, like this makes sense, that this was why they decided to make this move?
I think the biggest thing for me immediately was looking at the different type of plays that they were running. In those first couple of games, there was a whole lot of passing, but those passes were maintained to just a few yards, not a whole lot of long passes. But that's the first thing I noticed when they started putting when they put McKay Ilstead in against Air Force, is he started airing the ball out, so throwing some long passes to Micah Davis and really giving the receivers a chance on that ball. And then that's what we saw against James Madison as well. A lot of really long passes that are able to stretch the field and then give players like Terrell Vaughn, who's coming in at that slot receiver spot, chances to make a play on the ball closer to the line of scrimmage. And so I think that that's really the biggest thing. As far as his talent is concerned, it is there. He's thrown some incredible passes, but with any true freshman quarterback, you're going to have true freshman mistakes. We saw that last week against James Madison, throwing two big interceptions, really um, really unfortunate interceptions towards the end of the game that could have given them a chance to win if he hadn't thrown those. Um, and so I'd say the talent's certainly there. It's just going to be a matter of whether or not he's able to gain that experience and become that leader fast enough for the Aggies to have a real chance, especially in those close games, because they're certainly going to have quite a few, I think, heading down the stretch in their schedule.
Yeah, you mentioned Terrell Vaughn there. I know you did a piece on him. He's a senior, on a very young team. But I'm curious, he's putting up stats, obviously 6 touchdowns in 4 games. Do you feel like this is like legit talent, or is this kind of a case of like, a guy putting up numbers on like not a great team?
Well, I think there's some of that, but I do think that he has quite a bit of talent. It's pretty fun to talk to Terrell Vaughn because he doesn't love talking to the media. He'll kind of just, I mean, he's not someone that's going out and saying a bunch of things with his mouth. He's going to go and prove it to you on the field, and that's what he's done this season. Some incredible numbers from him, and I think in that piece that I wrote, he talked about, or I talked about how Terrell Vaughn, I think he's first in the nation in I can't remember if it was receptions or second in the nation in receptions and first in touchdowns. I think that's what it is, first in receiving touchdowns. So he's leading the nation there, and that's one thing that he's really been pretty constant. Not a lot of drops, and in every game, that's been the one player that McKay Hillstead and Cooper Legas have both been able to look to. I think it's pretty interesting against Idaho State. Obviously, not the caliber of opponent that you're getting against the rest of the schedule, but they looked to him. I think it was like 10 or 11 times in the first half, and so he was getting a lot of those receptions, a lot of those looks, and obviously that was a blowout in that first half. But I think that really shows they have a lot of confidence in Terrell Vaughn. He's a shifty playmaker. He's going to catch the ball. He's catching in double coverage and certainly provides a level of consistency and leadership to this team that they need. They need to have that.
Yeah, and then you kind of mentioned that that this game could be pretty close. The game last week was pretty close. Against UConn tomorrow, the Aggies are favored. The Huskies haven't won a game yet; they're 0-4. The Aggies are favored by just 4 points. I think it started out at around 6 or 7 points, down to 4 points as the line heading into tomorrow. And it's a big game. You go on the road and face have a potential kind of gimme win, right, to kind of get back on track. Because then after that, it doesn't get any easier, right? You get Colorado State and then Fresno State. So do you feel like this can kind of be like a really important confidence booster possibly for this team to get that second win heading into a tough stretch?
I think that's absolutely what it needs to be. If they don't get this win here, then that's going to, I think, demoralize the team heading into Mountain West play. This is a game they should win, but there are some other factors going into it. It's a morning game. Um, they're playing at 10 a.m. They're playing in Connecticut, which is it's no road trip to sneeze at. That's for sure. It's not an easy trip. Um, and I think part of it too is they are favored. That's not something they've seen since Idaho State. They're not favored in most of their games, and so I think it'll be interesting to see the way that they handle that pressure. Especially one thing to watch in that game will be how they perform in that first quarter. In every first quarter this season, that's kind of been the storyline of the season. They've just gotten absolutely destroyed, demolished by every opponent they faced, even against Idaho State, which ended up being a huge blowout win. The first quarter score was 7-7. I remember watching that game and just thinking that Idaho State was pretty good, and Utah State was really going to have to turn it up if they're going to win, which they did. But that first quarter has been really tough for them. And so I think especially if they could go on the road and get a really hot start against UConn in that first quarter, that could be a huge confidence booster to them heading into, like you said, the Colorado State and Fresno State, both at home. And so I think that could be a really great turning point for them in the season. I think this game could change a lot of things.
All right, so I know that you've been putting up your picks on our KSL.com pick'em leaderboard and all those stats on there, but I'm curious, what's your official pick for tomorrow?
Oh, I don't even remember, but I think I said it was something like 49-28 for the Aggies. I do think the Aggies will get it done. I think watching that team that played last week against James Madison, that was a different level of talent that I haven't seen from Utah State this season. That was pretty incredible to watch them mount that comeback against James Madison in a game where really they were out of it. They should not have comeback. They were down 24 points. And they came back and they did it. It was very impressive to watch. A lot of confidence from McKay Hillstead, and I think that against UConn, where UConn hasn't won a game all season, I think that's really the biggest difference. Is their opponent is not going to be the same type of opponent you're playing against James Madison or Air Force or Iowa. I think they'll get it done by a few touchdowns.
I like it. I like it. Going big. Obviously, this team, doesn't have trouble scoring. They've scored 78 points at one point this season. So hopefully it can be another big scoring day for the Aggies. I'm certainly a fan of betting the over. I tend to go a little high on my predictions on our pick'em competition. If you guys want to make fun of our picks, you can go to ksl.com, check out our the pick'em staff picks for this week, and I'm sure we'll get plenty of them wrong because it's going to be an exciting weekend of college football. So make sure you're staying tuned to that.
Absolutely. I'm always towards the bottom of the leaderboard, so don't make fun of me too much. I'm trying to work my way up.
It's definitely an acquired skill, and I think the more college football you watch and you follow, I think the better you can do. Because I'm kind of tending to notice that like the more senior people on our staff tend to be doing a little bit better. So I think we just need to like really grind the tape, Andrew. I think we just need to start
Exactly.
watching film.
Exactly. Every Saturday, all day. That's what I'll be doing.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man, and good luck to the Aggies tomorrow. Hopefully, it can be a positive game for you to cover.
Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, okay, we'll see you, man.